So I've been on the lookout for a Christmas card that a friend of mine received decades ago, and I've never been able to find one. But it shows a grown-up Jesus walking into his house, leaving the door open behind him, and his mother Mary calling out, "Jesus Christ, were you born in a barn? Shut that door." Now, it's hilarious, and I love that card, but it is not theologically accurate, and neither are most of our manger scenes, because Jesus was not born in a barn, even if he was laid in a manger. The word Luke uses, translated from the Greek to inn, doesn't mean a hotel or a place where strangers would stay. It is the word used at the end of Jesus' life when he and his friends gather in an upper room for a Passover meal in Luke chapter 22. It is the guest room of a family's home, not a place where you would pay to rent room from a stranger. So there was no place for them in the upper room or the guest room of whatever relative's home they had showed up at, because other relatives of Joseph were already there. The family of David was returning to the city of David, Bethlehem, for the census. Palestinian homes were built with the family quarters on one level and an upper level for women or for guests to use, and then in the basement, in the lower level, they would park their animals at night. It kept everybody warmer that way. It was a cow garage, as it were, and since there was no room for Joseph and Mary in the upper room or the guest room, they took the space that was available to them, likely with animals for company at night. Now, I still love that Christmas card, and if you ever see one, please buy it for me. But it is good to know that Joseph and Mary were not abandoned in a barn when Jesus was born, because nobody would welcome them into their home or hotel. They weren't at their own home, but they were in somebody's home. "I'll be home for Christmas," as the song goes. For Joseph and Mary, that song was more like, "Christmas Eve will find me where the cows all sleep. I won't be home for Christmas. King Herod is a creep." All right, it may not have exactly the same ring to it as Bing Crosby's version, but it does bring to mind some important things. That even in the midst of an unsettled and disrupted world, our Savior was born because of hospitality. Somebody opened their home to people in need, and likely at great inconvenience to the hosts, who already had people in their guest room and more mouths to feed and people to entertain. And now they had a woman giving birth in their basement. Hospitality was and is the norm in the Middle East. When I traveled in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and Palestine a number of years ago, I discovered a depth to hospitality that I had never experienced before. I was a stranger from a country that was often at odds with the governments of those countries, and yet I was treated as a valued and welcomed guest everywhere I went. And it made me realize the limits of my own practice of hospitality, which was often to people I knew or within safely constrained situations. It challenged me to speak to strangers, to ask people if I could offer them help or directions or other assistance. And there's a lot of horrible stuff in the news these days about how we divide up into us and them and how we don't welcome people. Stories of government policies that are not welcoming at all, increasing stories of violence and racist acts. People are also reluctant to care for the health of their neighbors by wearing masks. They still gather in large crowds. It's easy to read these stories and conclude that people just don't care and that we're on our own and we better not rely on anyone else for kindness. But it's not true. We're not alone. The whole story of Christmas is that God came down to earth to be born among us in the midst of unrest. We are not alone. And while the news industry is built on moving from crisis to crisis, and so stories that it seems like nothing but the stories of petty meanness are on the news, and it is important for the press to bring that bad behavior to light. But there are other stories that demand our attention as well, We need to be on the lookout for stories of compassion and hospitalities. Had there been a 24-hour news cycle in Jesus' day, it surely would have covered the travesty of the census, forcing people to be displaced from their homes just so Rome could better tax and control the territory that they were occupying. It would have had special features on Quirinius and Herod and their corruption. They would have had Sunday news shows about the economy of Bethlehem and how the influx of census goers was impacting. The story of Luke, that Luke gives us hints to that, but the focus of Luke's story is on a hospitality that welcomes people into an already crowded home, trusting that there's room for everyone. Luke's Christmas story focuses on God's intention to bring people together, despite our abilities to keep people apart. So are we willing to have hearts open to receive stories of hospitality and kindness? Are we willing to let go of the narrative of fear that tries to divide and separate us? I read a story this week about a woman named Kelly Kenny who walked past a little fairy garden that a child had made in her neighborhood early on in the pandemic. Amid the turquoise rocks and painted stones and garden gnomes was a laminated note from the child's parents, written in verse. "Our 4-year-old girl made this to brighten your day. Please add to the magic, but don't take away. These days can be hard, but we're in it together. So enjoy our fairy garden and some nicer weather." So Kenny decided to write a note to the child, pretending to be the fairy who had moved into the home that had been built for her, thanking her by leaving her little fairy gifts. She also gave her contact information to the parents so they would know what's up, which I think is an important part of this story. So Sapphire, the fairy, and the little girl became pen pals. Kenny wrote, "Doing this every night gave me purpose in a horribly painful and lonely time. I looked forward to my days again, and I started ordering art supplies and little trinkets to leave her." Friends, with hearts open to connect with others, we can extend hospitality, even in the midst of a pandemic, from 6 feet apart. The little girl's family recently moved to a different neighborhood, and the girl was worried about leaving her fairy pen pal behind. So Sapphire the fairy wrote the girl a note saying it was time for her to move as well, and she and the girl's mother arranged a chance encounter so the little girl could meet her pen pal before they moved. So after COVID tests, and while still wearing masks and a cape to hide her fairy wings, Sapphire the fairy was caught by the girl in the garden, and they visited for an hour and promised to keep in touch by writing letters. And here's how Kenny described the experience. She said, "We are all in this time together, living through a pandemic in the year 2020, trying to take everything one day at a time. It's easy to be pessimistic and get lost in the painful and chaotic stories we see every day. There's a lot of pain in the world right now. But if you have the ability to brighten even one person's day, you never know what that might turn into." I have found hospitality to be a two-way street in almost all instances. I might think I'm the one helping someone out, but somehow in my interactions with them, I am confident I am the one who is blessed by our exchange. I'm sure Miss Kenny thought at first that she was the one helping the little girl, and by the end, she's the one who received the gift. I wonder about that distant family member who let Mary and Joseph stay in their cow garage. What was it like for them when the shepherds knocked on their door looking for the child that had been born? What did they think of the story that shepherds told about the angels on the hillside that night? Right now, we can't welcome people into our homes as we've done in the past, but after we get through COVID, I hope we'll think differently about hospitality. Who will we invite into our lives? And while we wait for the vaccine to be distributed, what can we do even now to invite people into the homes of our hearts? How can we extend hospitality even now? Who needs to know that you have room for them in your life? What does home mean to you? Is it the house where you live? As I've gotten older, my understanding of home has expanded. It's not as much about a physical address anymore. It's about where my people are. And I think about this at the holidays when my boys are only home for a short period of time, and I note that tension between wanting everyone safe and sound and with me and under one roof, while also recognizing that much of life happens once you leave home. If we never left the places we lived, what kind of adventures would we have? Think about all the people we would never meet. Home can be an actual building, or it can be an identity. It can be a place of safety, which is an understandable desire in times of uncertainty and disruption. Homes can also be places of exclusion, gated fortresses where people are kept out because of their difference. Home can be a source of pain, a reminder of the people who are missing, of a reality that doesn't quite measure up to expectations and dreams. The idea of home is an important concept, and I will remain grateful for each and every moment when my people are safe and sound under one roof, especially now that my family has multiple households. I'm also, though, aware of how much richer my life is because of the way my understanding of home has expanded. The intentional practice of hospitality has transformed my understanding of home. Because if the only people about whom I'm invested are the people who live at my same address, then the world is very small indeed, and I miss out on the opportunity to play host to God being born in our world today. Jesus was not born in his home or even his hometown. His parents were on the road, dislocated because of a political situation beyond their control, and I'm quite certain Mary would have preferred having her friends with her when she gave birth, instead of in-laws and cows and shepherds and crowds of other people dislocated on the roads because of Herod. But I wonder if Jesus was born on the road because God wants us to challenge the way we limit what home means for us. Home can't be contained to a particular building, or to one group of people, or to one religious affiliation or skin color or sexual identity or gender orientation. Being born on the road, as it were, a guest in someone else's home, shows that Jesus and God will not be contained. Whenever we try to lay too heavy a claim or an ownership on Jesus, he reminds us that he was born in temporary quarters. He was born to remind us that home is where our people are. He was born to ever expand our understanding of who should be included in our people. Later in Luke's Gospel, in chapter 9, there is a somewhat odd exchange where they're going down the road and someone says to Jesus, "I will follow you wherever you go." But Jesus' reply is somewhat odd. He says, "Foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." If I connect that verse to the Christmas story in Bethlehem, then I can understand how the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head is the appropriate response when somebody says, "I will follow you wherever you go." Because if you follow me wherever I go, says Jesus, you are giving up claims on having only one place to call home. You will have to learn to rely on the hospitality of strangers. If you follow me wherever I go, you will give up claims on having just one small group of people you claim as yours. You will have to practice hospitality that makes you uncomfortable and shatters your stereotypes. If you follow me wherever I go, you will have to step into the messy middle of the political situations of the day, standing up to King Herod, welcoming refugees who are on the road due to no fault of their own, seeing how you can make room in the inn of your life, your home, and your heart. It just might be God seeking shelter, looking for a place to lay God's head. This year, many of us are feeling away from home in ways we haven't experienced in a while. We aren't gathered with extended families. We aren't crowded into church pews and home for Christmas the way we wish we could be. But we can still be together. We are still together tonight. We are still home with and for each other while we worship together, even apart. and I pray you have the opportunity to both give and to receive hospitality in these days. As a recipient of your welcome and your hospitality, as I've begun this new call with you this year, I want you to know how grateful I am for the welcome that you have given me, for the safe space you have given me to minister with you in this time. As we prepare for this new year, though, I invite us to consider who else God might be preparing for us to invite into our understanding of home. Are we dreaming big enough with our welcome, with our budgets and how we spend our money, with our actions and what we do with our time? I pray you will feel that you are home for Christmas this year, even if it isn't what you wanted or thought it would be. When Bing Crosby crooned the song during World War II, it was likewise to people who were not where they wanted to be, to people who were not having the holiday they wanted to have. Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams. Our Advent theme, Those Who Dream, has been taken from the 126th Psalm. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream, and our mouths were filled with laughter and our tongues with shouts of joy, and it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. Tonight, we are those who dream, and we lay claim to a story of welcome and hospitality, of incarnational love and radical justice. And where we don't see that story, the Christmas story being played out and reflected in our world, we commit to reshaping our world, to dreaming a new world into existence. We are those who dream for a return to community, for an end to needless death and suffering, for welcome for all of God's children. So may the child born in a stable inspire us to fling open the doors of our hearts so that we may all be home for Christmas, no matter where we find ourselves in these days. Tonight, we are those who dream. May it be so. Amen.